Welcome to the Sharkpreneur podcast with Kevin Harrington and Seth Greene. Kevin Harrington is the inventor of the infomercial, one of the original sharks from the hit TV show Shark Tank, and has generated over $5 billion in TV and digital direct response sales. Seth Greene is the world's first trusted authority on cutting-edge direct response marketing, a best-selling author, and the only 3-time Marketer of the Year nominee. On the podcast, Kevin and Seth interview sharkpreneurs who share straight talk on what it takes to explode your business.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com. Welcome to the podcast. This is your host, Seth Greene. Today, I've got the good fortune to be with Lindsay Pinchuk, former founder of Bump Club and Beyond. Her story includes building Bump Club from $500 investment to a multiple 7-figure brand, partnering with companies like Target, Nordstrom, Huggies, and Unilever, along with Pinchuk Marketing and Consulting, and Dear found her. Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, Seth, for having me.
Our pleasure. So let's go back in time. You started Bump Club and Beyond while you were pregnant and working in corporate America. How did that get started?
I got pregnant. I got pregnant. I was living in Chicago and we are transplants. I didn't have any pregnant friends at the time. We all have rising 10th graders. I just was first. And I said to my husband, I have to find a way to meet other expectant moms. I was working also, and a lot of the only way to really meet expectant moms was prenatal yoga, and the classes were taking place in the neighborhoods at 5 p.m. And as a working woman, I just could not get there. So I started hosting social events. We did some prenatal workouts. We did some retail shopping events. And you have to remember, this was 2010. Social media wasn't really a thing. So it was very word of mouth based. I sent out an email to everyone I knew. And the first 2 events got 50 and then 75 women, and word of mouth traveled. And then we started hosting more in-depth events, educational events. And that's really how it got started.
That is fascinating. And you started with $500. When did you realize this was more than just a side hustle?
So I took that $500 and I actually used it to build like a very basic website. That's what that $500 was for. I was pregnant. So I announced the business when I announced my pregnancy. So 3 months into my pregnancy, I ran the business while I was working throughout my pregnancy. We hosted 2 events per month in Chicago. I went on maternity leave and I luckily had a very good sleeper. My baby slept a lot. And I often say that if I started Bump Club when my second was born, there would not have been a Bump Club because she still doesn't sleep and she's 12. So basically I went through my maternity leave and I had a lot of time to pour into this business. And I decided to go back to work after maternity leave was over. When I went back to work, I realized something had to give. Bump Club at this point was 3-4 events a month in Chicago. I had brands all over asking me to be involved. And I also had women in other cities that were asking me to bring Bump Club to them. And so I basically said to my husband, you know what, like I'm making money. Let's give it a try. What's the worst that happens? And that's really my litmus test for everything. What's the worst that happens? Well, in this situation, the worst that happens is it doesn't take off and I have to go back and find a job. And the second question is, can you live with that? And I could. And so we made some adjustments to like our personal finances and I decided to give it a go. And that's really when I decided to make it a business and kind of stop thinking about it as a passion project.
And how did you grow it? Because obviously you grew to an incredible level in a relatively short period of time.
So the number one way I grew the business to start with was partnerships. And again, there was no social media, so it was a very different landscape in terms of marketing as it is now. So what I first did was I partnered with so many different entities, both local retailers, local brick and mortar like boutique fitness. I partnered with Lululemon and hosted community workouts. So I did a lot of partnerships, and in those partnerships, the partner would also share about what we were doing at Bump Club. I was very targeted. Obviously, I was trying to reach an expectant mom, so I went to maternity stores, baby gear stores. I started bringing in expert speakers, lactation consultants, sleep experts, pediatricians. They shared. So it really was a partnership model to start. And what ended up happening was I started reaching out to brands really just to sample in our gift bags and to provide products for like raffle prizes at our events. And the first few events were very well attended, and the photographs and the videos from these events were pretty impressive. And the brands got back to me. And I think it was maybe our third or fourth event. One of the brands came back to me and said, "We want to do more. We don't just want to do like a raffle prize. We want to sponsor this." And so I came up with a sponsorship package. My background was in ad sales. So I took the knowledge from my ad sales days and I created a sponsorship package. From there, more brands saw it. They wanted to get involved. You know, it's like you always want when you don't have. And in the baby space, if a brand saw another brand participating in my events, they wanted to be involved too. And so it really was a slow growth, and we built upon what we were doing. So this didn't happen overnight, obviously, but we really took this foundation of partnerships and built upon it and started generating revenue from it. We also started selling tickets to our events. So they weren't all free, they were ticketed. So it was very much a media model where it was the subscribers and the sponsorships. From there, what ended up happening was we started hosting this like boutique style like baby gear event inside independent retailers in multiple cities. And we started here in Chicago where I'm based. And what ended up happening was both Nordstrom and Target got word of this because we were working with all the brands that were being sold in their stores. And they both reached out to me separately, obviously, to create activations for their communities in their stores. And that was really what put us on the map nationally. And that's really kind of how this took off.
That is absolutely fascinating. How did you keep it feeling personal as it grew to a national brand?
So I was constantly the face of the company. And that's kind of the second thing that I think is really important to point out about the success of this brand. I was forward facing. It was, I had no problem sharing my stories as an expectant mom, sharing my stories as a new mom and then a mom of two. I was very much a part of our content, and I was the face of this company. And so, it's funny because I never wanted to compromise my trust with the community. And so I would say no to brands. I would say no to activations. I would say no to partnerships all the time. And, looking back, obviously that was integral to the success of the company. But when I was in the moment, that was just me. That was just me being me. And, I will say what ended up happening as we grew is we started bringing in moms in different cities to be kind of like our super mom or like the face of Bump Club in the cities where we were hosting other events. And in addition to them being the face of the brand locally, we were also able to provide new moms and working moms with an opportunity to work in a very flexible capacity. I started this because I wanted to be home with my daughter. And granted, I worked longer and harder and more than probably in corporate America, but it was on my time, right? So here I was being able to give this gift to other women who really wanted to work, but wanted to be a part of something and didn't just want to stay at home. And so that was also a big piece of this was these local moms were the face of the brand and they had connection. And what happened was we started taking it was called Gearapalooza, was this like flagship event series that Target and Nordstrom got a hold of and wanted to create something because of. And so when we would take that event into these other cities, we already had a foundation there because we had a mom there who was hosting events, who knew the community, who knew the retailers, who knew the players. And we were able to come in and tap into that network she was building on our behalf and sell tickets to our bigger event. And so I think the big point in all of this is it was a very gradual growth. It was slow, but we built upon what we put in place. Like it wasn't like something that, again, happened overnight. We saw what worked, we expanded upon it, and we built upon it.
How did you decide what to say yes to and what to say no to as you grew?
So a lot of it had to do with like a lot of it was product based. And so it was, would I as a mom use this product? And often, and as my team grew, so like in addition to the moms in the various cities, I did have a full-time team. So I had 10 employees when I sold my company, and we were all except for two were moms. And I would go to them and say, I got this, new pitch for a product. Let's test it out. Is this something you would use? And we would discuss it. And I don't think there was ever an argument amongst us even of like yes or no, but that was really the litmus test. If I wouldn't put it on my own child or use it for my own child, I wasn't going to tell the women in our community to do that.
How did you decide it was the right time to exit?
So I knew that this was a life stage business because I couldn't be standing there like hawking strollers and telling women like what to use for their babies when I was no longer in that mode. I didn't feel it was authentic. And I know that word is very overused, but a very big piece of this business was me sharing my experiences. So by the time I knew that by the time I was 40, I would want to either have sold and exited or been acquired and worked for the company in a larger capacity with other new moms underneath me to kind of fill in that space as the face of the company. And what ended up happening was I was approached by three different entities, oddly all on LinkedIn in the same summer. And I ended up going with the company that I felt was going to give me the greatest opportunity to go into as many households as possible with the knowledge and education and experience and community that Bump Club provided so many moms and expectant moms with. But I knew that I had a shelf life, and I knew that I couldn't be the face of this company forever.
Well, congratulations on the sale. What then inspired dear founder, her and Lindsay marketing?
So the sale didn't go as I really wanted it to. And so that's not a secret. I talk about it all the time, but that could also be like 10 whole episodes here. So I'll say that it wasn't great. And I think that that's pretty common amongst founders that are acquired. I went and worked for the new company for 2 years, and I was miserable, and I realized that I had to exit. I also want to say that I sold the company in 2019. We were an events-based company. If I hadn't sold the company, we would have gone out of business during COVID like all of my competitors. So I did work through COVID. We transitioned into a digital events, and it ended up being okay, but it was miserable, and I did not want to be there anymore. And I knew I needed to exit. And so I planned my exit. It took about 8 months. There was a lot of legalities involved, and it was a dark time of my life. And once I was able to get out, it was really the greatest relief. And when I left, I did take a little bit of a pause, like a couple of weeks. It was really only a couple of weeks because then I had this idea. But I did take a little bit of a break. But I knew that what I wanted to do was help other women grow their businesses. I built this business with no budget. I built it with no followers. It was bootstrapped from the start, and it was really built based on very simple marketing practices, like foundational marketing that a lot of business owners kind of throw to the wind for like more complicated funnels and technology at this point. And I knew that small business owners really needed to tap into these simple principles. And so when I left, I sent out an email that I was taking clients, and people were like, what are you taking clients in? And I was like, well, I can do, your marketing strategy. I can do your social strategy. There's a whole list of things. And within a couple of weeks, I had a few clients. And so I was working on these projects, and I had this idea for Dear Founder. I wanted to share the stories of the women in my network, not just the success stories, but also like the shit, like the shit that we all go through. I really wanted to help other women not go through some of this stuff. And so I simply showed up on the podcast with women in my network, some very big founders, and started sharing stories. And what ended up happening was a lot of the women who were listening were like, how can I work with you? Or is there a way that we can meet the other listeners in person? Or what else can we do to interact with this brand? And so I started hosting events. I created a mentorship for women small business owners over 40. And I have an online community now for women small business owners over 40. And it's very much been based on the foundation that I built Bump Club upon. And oddly, not oddly, but ironically, there are a lot of women who come to Dear Founder now that were Bump Club clients back in the day. And I feel very proud of the work that I'm doing because I know I'm watching these women build businesses successfully. And I know that they don't need to go raise money. I know that they don't need to stress out and like literally be working 24 hours a day. And I'm sharing these simple practices and I'm watching them implement them, and it's working for them too.
That is awesome. You've helped so many people. What's your biggest challenge now?
My biggest challenge is that there's not enough time in the day to do everything that I want to do. And like, I feel so fortunate. Like a lot of people ask me all the time, like, are you sad you sold Bump Club, or are you sad what happened? Because it did go out of business eventually. I saw that writing on the wall and that's why I exited. And I often say, like, I sat Shiva for this business when I was still there. And it was such a relief to leave. Without the experience, without that horrible experience, I would never be able to do what I'm doing now. And I'm the happiest that I've ever been. And so I feel so fortunate that I go to work every day and I love what I do. And my litmus test now when people ask me for plans or for dinner is, would I rather be working? Because I love what I do. And so my biggest challenge is not enough time in the day and really kind of trying to execute all of these ideas that I have.
I love that example. I love that. Would I do this or would I rather be working? That is such a positive reframe. Your passion is obvious. What do you like best about what you're doing?
Oh my God, there's so much. I love the connections. So I mean, if someone were to say to me, what is your superpower? I would say I'm a connector. I always have been since the time I was a little girl. And I love meeting other women and talking to other women and then connecting them with one another. And I would say also that the podcast has really brought some incredible women into my life that I never ever would have thought. I have clients now who are guests on my podcast, friends who are guests on my podcast, and I really just I can't say enough positive. There's not enough that I could say about the positivity of the podcast and the connection and the women that it's brought into my life. And I often tell the women in my community, I say to them, like, I need you as much as you need me. And it really is a two-way street. And I love it.
That is awesome. For our folks watching or listening who want to learn more, where is the best place for them to go? Where can we send them?
The best place to go is at Dear Found Her on Instagram. And there you can find my website. You can find my Substack. You can find links to the podcast. It's all there.
Awesome. This has been Seth Greene with Lindsay Pinchuk. Lindsay, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you so much, Seth, for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you, everybody, for watching or listening. We will talk to you or see you next time.
Why do so many businesses struggle while others seem to explode overnight? Do you wish you had the secret to this type of exponential growth? Now, I've scaled more than 20 businesses to over $100 million, and it's not just luck. In my new book with Mark Tim, Mentor to Millions, you'll learn the repeatable framework I use in all my business ventures for massive success. Order at kevinmentor.com and get over $1,000 in bonuses. Head to kevinmentor.com.